In the serene sanctuary of a yoga studio, tranquility shatters when the beloved instructor becomes the target of an international manhunt. As peaceful poses give way to a heart-pounding pursuit, she must twist her practice of serenity into a fight for survival, navigating a world where every breath could be her last. This case is coming from Texas, USA. An elite gravel racer, Mariah, popularly known as Mo Wilson, was found dead on the floor of her friend's bathroom, with several wounds sustained due to gunshots on May 11, 2022 in Austin, Texas. It was reported that Wilson was in town for a 150-mile gravel locos race, and she put up with one of her friends, Kaitlin Cash. Before her death, she was believed to have gone out on a dinner date with Strickland, a professional cyclist who she was rumored to be in a romantic relationship with. The body of Wilson was found later around 10 p.m., called 911, and tried performing CPR, but it was too late. Inside Cash's apartment, shell casings were found, and she told authorities that Wilson had been with fellow cyclist Colin Strickland that evening. She got a notification from her electronic door notifying her that Wilson had arrived back at the apartment. She unlocked the door at 8:36 p.m. As the police unravel the chilling details, a shadowy figure named Armstrong emerges, linked to the crime by a black Grand Cherokee Jeep. Tensions rise as her connection to Strickland and the intricate web of relationships unfold, with twists of alleged theft, technicalities in her release, and Strickland's surprising revelation on social media. This tale of love, deceit, and murder takes unexpected turns. Investigators saw footage from a neighboring security camera that showed that a black SUV drove by a minute after Wilson was dropped off at Cash's apartment. Wilson's bike was discovered by the police in the bushes near Cash's apartment. On May 12, 2022, police arrived at Strickland's home early in the morning after Wilson's murder. He was told that Wilson died and that it looked like a case of homicide. It was observed that she endured 2 gunshots on her head and 1 in the chest, according to a search warrant made. An individual who goes by the name Armstrong was identified by the police after a video surveillance picture of her black Grand Cherokee Jeep arrived at Austin's residence just before the incident. She described herself as a yoga instructor, replied to the Facebook investigation by the police, and agreed to meet. Armstrong was taken into custody for alleged theft, but she refused to make any statement to the police when asked about her vehicle shown by video evidence. The license plate was run by investigators, and it was discovered that it was linked to her by registration. It was noted by investigators that she was angry with the way she turned her head and rolled her eyes when questioned about who Wilson was to Strickland. She was later released based on technicalities bordering on inconsistencies between her date of birth in the warrant and the one in the database of the police department. Strickland also later went to the police station for questioning and told them about the time he spent with Wilson the day before. He further told them about his relationship with Armstrong, his live-in girlfriend. Strickland took to social media after Wilson's death and wrote about the 6 months before the incident of Wilson's death. He spoke about the short breakup with Armstrong and the brief romantic relationship he had with Wilson, which spanned for a week or so. He revealed that he put an end to the relationship and turned it into a casual and professional one. Strickland was cleared and ruled out as a suspect. It was later discovered he was on the phone at the time Wilson was killed. Amy Charity, a fellow racer and event organizer, reveals the somber atmosphere that engulfed riders during the Austin event. As the community grapples with grief and tributes pour in, Charity emphasizes the enduring effect on the sport. Join the journey through shared grief, sunrise rides in Wilson's honor, and the resilient spirit that continues to define gravel cycling despite the tragic setback. 3 weeks after Mariah was shot dead in Austin, Texas, the gravel community was still mourning ahead of the weekend's event named Unbound Gravel. Amy Charity, who was also a racer and part of the organizers of SBT-GRVL, says Wilson's death had a profound impact on the community. She was one of the racers who were in the Austin area for the event. Wilson had also expected to compete in the 150-mile event before she died. Charity said riders reeled because of Wilson's death. She reported to Cycling News that they grieved in different ways. She mentioned the fact that it certainly affected the gravel community. It was tragic, she said, and that they were still trying to process the event. Wilson's name was the name most spoken about and mentioned at the gravel event, she said. She said Wilson had a bright future in the world of gravel cycling, but the world is too filled with tragedy and violence. Days after Wilson was shot dead, riders drove out together and only raced to avoid the heat of the afternoon at Gravel Locos. It was reported that there was supposed to be more racing at the Unbound Gravel, but riders were still trying to cope with the loss. Charity said if there was a place safe to grieve with friends, it was the Unbound Gravel ground, and that it would continue. There were so many tributes in honor of Wilson. The groups rode in her honor. These things help us to acknowledge and think through the unfortunate incident and help everybody grieve. It had a notable effect and it will continue for a while, she said. The defending men's champion, Ian Boswell, who won in Unbound 200, led a sunrise ride in honor of Wilson on Friday morning in Emporia. Charity said tributes will continue and that doing this kind of thing will help in honor of Wilson the best way everyone can. The incident slowed the growth of interest in gravel. Many events got more requests than there was space for having to have lotteries for entrance. The trend was an international effort from organizers like Michael Marks of the Belgian Waffle, Charity, Rebecca Roosh, Rebecca's Private Idaho, and other teams like the Unbound organizers Lifetime. We think gravel is the way forward and we all want to see the sport of cycling grow. Charity said the organization is working to help people to find a safe environment with gravel. It's showing in the numbers and it's positive, she said. As the gravel community reeled from the shock of Mo Wilson's tragic death, emotions ran high ahead of the Unbound gravel event. Riders mourning the loss of their own and the spirit of solidarity prevailing. You won't believe what happened next. Video footage showed her running and attempting to jump a fence, with her hands restrained. The attempted prison break incurred additional charges after she was restrained. It was reported that just 3 weeks before Armstrong's trial was set to start, she was escorted by authorities for a doctor's appointment where she attempted to run away by escaping custody. ESPN reported that she sold her Jeep days after the murder and immediately flew to Houston. Cameras also captured the footage of Armstrong at a New Jersey airport where she flew to Costa Rica using her sister's passport. On arriving in Costa Rica, she changed her appearance and dyed her blonde hair jet black. Reports had it that deputy marshals had a good idea of what hostel Armstrong was keeping up at Santa Teresa. A bandage was noticed by Perez, who was one of the investigators, to be on Armstrong's nose and her lips equally swollen. He helped the local tourism police surveilling the hostel. Perez was not convinced until he got a closer look at her eyes. He noticed that those eyes matched Armstrong's picture and was certain they'd gotten the right woman. He told the other team members on the ground it was her. Perez approached Armstrong alone inside the hostel. Armstrong was at the front desk where she was working. Perez pretended to be a tourist. He was speaking Spanish, so she wouldn't be scared. Local police swiftly moved in and made the arrest. Right in the hostel, a receipt of cosmetic surgery was found where Armstrong was captured. The receipt confirmed the date when the deputy marshals were first in Santa Teresa looking for Armstrong. She was getting surgery in San Jose. This added to the difficulty in locating Armstrong when the deputy marshals first arrived in Santa Teresa. Police arrested Armstrong in Costa Rica after 43 days. They believed the surgery changed her nose after finding receipts from a plastic surgeon's office for over $6,000. Armstrong was taken back to the U.S. and was charged with first-degree murder. She was held on a $3.5 million bail bond and held in jail. In a daring attempt to evade justice, Armstrong's desperate flight takes her on a harrowing journey across borders and through plastic surgery, but ends in a high-stakes showdown. Armstrong pleaded not guilty to murder after being charged in court. On November 16, 2023, Armstrong was found guilty of first-degree murder by a jury after nothing less than 2 hours of deliberations after a 2-week trial. Armstrong defended herself by saying she had been caught in a web of circumstantial evidence. She also said no video evidence can be put forward that she was on the scene of a shooting. Prosecutors in Texas, however, told the jury that the last thing Wilson did was to scream in terror. ESPN reports that the screams were captured by surveillance equipment. The screams were followed by "pop, pop," said the prosecutor. It was also reported by some friends that Armstrong had been stalking Wilson, calling her constantly and demanding she stays away from Strickland. Another friend further claimed she'd been with Armstrong when she knew about her boyfriend's relationship with Wilson. Armstrong reportedly claimed that she wanted to kill Wilson. Documents from the police showed Strickland told police he'd bought 2 guns. He bought one for Armstrong and himself for their protection. It was believed by the police that it was the same firearm she used to kill Wilson, but Strickland was ruled out as a possible killer of Wilson due to solid proof. As the details of the crime unfold, Armstrong's premeditated jealous rage is exposed, marking a shocking end to this harrowing saga. Kaitlin Armstrong was sentenced to 90 years in prison the following day. Following an international manhunt lasting for 43 days and a failed endeavor to run away from custody, the yoga instructor was found guilty of the first-degree murder of Wilson, who was a professional cyclist. Wilson was said to have visited from San Francisco for a gravel racing competition. Armstrong, 36, was reported to have shot Mariah Wilson, 25, 3 times in the head and chest at a friend's house in Austin in a premeditated jealous rage. She was condemned to 90 years in prison and also slammed with a $10,000 fine. In a stunning conclusion to the harrowing saga, the gavel falls on Armstrong's fate, sealing her destiny behind bars. The trial, which lasted for 3 weeks, closed with powerful remarks from Mo Wilson's father, Eric Wilson, outside the courtroom. He said he believed justice had been dished out, and that the family has so many people to thank. He mentioned the fact that there was no winner and that it was not a time for celebration, but a time for prayers. Time to pray for friends and family, and also for Armstrong's family and friends. On Friday afternoon, Anna Mariah Wilson's family stood side by side at a Travis County courthouse, hugging each other after weeks of reliving the gruesome facts about the murder of Wilson. Wilson's father was passionate in front of the people who came around and stood outside the courthouse. He spoke about the death of his daughter and how it has left the family feeling incomplete. Mr. Eric went further by saying he knows that there's nothing that the family could do in the courtroom that will ever be enough, but he's hopeful that the outcome brings them some sibilance, peace, and hope. It was reported that the Wilsons were going to start a foundation in Mo Wilson's honor. As for Kaitlin Armstrong, it was reported that she will be eligible for parole in the next 30 years. At the moment, she will be spending the rest of her life in a Texas prison. As the tranquil realm of yoga intertwines with the high-stakes drama of an international manhunt, brace yourself for corrupt police ending their careers in our next video.